Welcome to the Money for Dads podcast. This is your host, Adam Katz. This podcast is for dads like you and me who want to save on everything, stretch your paycheck, and spend more time with your family. I don't want you or your spouse to be forced anymore to pick up extra shifts, take second jobs, work overtime, or sacrifice necessities just to pay your bills. I want you to be able to choose how you spend your time while giving your kids the most amazing childhoods possible. And that's why I created this podcast. This is your host, Adam Katz. And today I want to talk to you about an idea that I came up with that's helped me make some financial decisions lately, both in my personal life and for Money for Dads. And the idea is the Rolls Royce test. In 1958, advertising genius David Ogilvy put out an ad for Rolls Royce, and in it he wrote, "At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in the new Rolls Royce comes from the electric clock." This should give you an idea of how smooth the car runs. It's beautiful. It's been described as if you're riding in a cloud. So how should you think about a Rolls Royce in terms of your own life? How can you apply the Rolls Royce test, and what does it really mean? Basically, if you can't afford a Rolls Royce, you don't buy it. It doesn't matter if it has all the bells and whistles, if it has unbelievable benefits, if it'll change your life, it'll simplify your life. Sometimes you just can't afford the Rolls Royce. It's clear, it's black and white. A Rolls Royce itself is not something you can afford. You're not going to take out loans for it. You won't even get a loan for it. You're not going to sell your home to get a Rolls Royce. You're not going to make immense sacrifices in your life to get a Rolls Royce. It's not worth it. It's not necessary. And despite the impact that it'll have on your life, you simply cannot afford it. Recently, for Money for Dads, there was some software that I wanted to buy, and it had all the bells and whistles, but bells and whistles that were actually necessary. It would have simplified a lot of what I do and made things easier and quicker. But you know what? I applied the Rolls Royce test, and it was out of my price range. So I didn't go for it. I found something else that works. It is not as simple, it's not as easy, but you know what? With the Rolls Royce test, I knew how I should proceed. It's really easy to get caught up in what you're about to buy and how it'll impact your life and say, I'll figure it out, or make tremendous sacrifices for it. But just like a Rolls Royce, you can't afford it. So don't buy it. Don't rent it. Don't lease it. It'll only cause you problems in the future. And the problems in the future are ones you're not even anticipating now. If you want to actually buy a Rolls Royce, do you think that you can afford the insurance every month? So this idea, the Rolls Royce test, is something that you should use with bigger purchases. That's how I use it. To use it for smaller purchases, it doesn't really make sense because it's kind of laughable. Should you buy the candy bar in the checkout aisle for $2? Well, you think it's just a Rolls Royce? It's a candy bar. Go buy a candy bar. Who cares? It's not going to change your life. It's not going to ruin you. But for bigger purchases, this is where you should think about it. So remember, use the Rolls Royce test, and it'll help you make decisions on purchases that otherwise are cloudy or you're confused about. And it should provide some real clarity for you. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. To help you get started on your journey to stretch your income, save on everything, and spend more time with your family, you should visit my website, moneyfordads.com, and download the Money for Dads Starter Kit for free. In the kit is the Money for Dads amazing and simple budget template, which auto-calculates everything. It's so easy to use. And you'll also get my 11 money-saving tips guaranteed to change your life. They're philosophies that I use that have helped me to stretch my family's income as much as I have. So if you like this podcast, then subscribe. And if you think that it could help somebody else, a friend of yours, share it with them. I'd love to be able to help more people. And even better, which would help get the word out even more about this podcast, give it a review and a rating. I read all reviews, and I'd love to hear how the podcast helps you. So go to your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whichever one you use, and give it a review and a rating now. The more reviews that I have, the more we can share these ideas with the world, build the Money for Dads community, and help more dads spend more time with their families. Also, if you write a review, I'll probably give it a shout out on a future podcast. Thanks again for listening, and have an awesome rest of the day.